I returned to London and began work at Hammersmith Hospital, which, unlike Huddersfield, was a postgraduate school. Everything about it seemed better. The building, the wards, and my wages, which doubled from a paltry £2 a month to almost £4. The hospital was also massive in comparison, 3 times the size of Huddersfield. Before, I'd been able to navigate the wards in less than half an hour, but Hammersmith was so big that it took me 3 hours just to walk around it all. The main entrance was incredibly grand and housed a small shop just inside the foyer. The corridors cut through the building like arteries, carrying doctors, nurses and patients, and in some places they seemed up to half a mile long. The hospital had specialised units and modern wards spread out over 4 blocks, and you had to cross a yard to access each one. There was maternity at one end and A&E at the other, mirroring both life and death. Unlike my old hospital, the maternity ward housed a neonatal unit for premature babies. This was cutting-edge medicine at the time. At Huddersfield, all premature babies had to be rushed to Sheffield for specialised treatment, but in London it was all under one roof. There were also units for radiotherapy and diabetes patients. The place was swarming with postgraduate students, nurses and doctors. Before, there'd been just one matron in charge, but at Hammersmith there was a deputy and a stand-in matron too. It was similar with the sister tutor. At Huddersfield there had been just one, but in London there was one with 3 under-tutors to support her. I felt totally out of my depth. As students, we were expected to do everything, usually the jobs that no one else wanted to do. I worked on the children's ward, where I had the unenviable task of delousing young patients. Initially, I felt totally frustrated because I was treated like a country bumpkin. But after 3 months working in the children's ward, I transferred to the geriatric ward, where I made a real name for myself after mixing up all the patients' false teeth. I'd spent 3 hours cleaning them, and once I'd finished, I was delighted. I popped them back inside the sterilised bowl and made my way back up to the ward. However, the smile was soon wiped off my face by Sister. How do you know whose teeth are whose?" she said, pointing towards the bucket. I looked at her, and then down at the dozen sets of teeth, all spotlessly clean, but now hopelessly jumbled up. "Oh," I replied, as my heart sank to my knees. I spent the rest of the afternoon trying to match the rightful owner to each set, but it was an impossible and thankless task. Some of the patients were elderly and suffered with dementia, so upon seeing a better pair of dentures, they claimed them, even if they didn't fit. At one point, a fight almost broke out. In the end, it took me the best part of the day to try to fit each person to each set, but it taught me the importance of labelling. Shamed by the teeth debacle, I transferred from geriatrics to the medical ward, where I worked a series of night shifts. But it wasn't long before I made a name for myself again. One evening I was asked to clean out the sluice. It was a horrible task, and as soon as I entered I recoiled at the stench of urine. It was so strong that it choked the back of my throat. I immediately spotted the culprits, a dozen half-full Winchester bottles of urine that had stunk the place out. Pinching the end of my nose and trying not to breathe in too deeply, I emptied each and every one of them, sterilised the bottles, lined them up on the side in a neat row, and wiped down the surfaces. Exhausted but satisfied I'd done a thorough job, I returned to the ward, where the nurses on the day shift were just about to take over. Once I was off duty, I headed back to my room, where I flopped straight into bed. I was so tired that I fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow, but moments later, I was woken by the sound of someone banging furiously at my door. "You need to come to the ward. Sister wants to see you," a voice called from the corridor.